Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so I have Ivan Bebek on the line, and he's formerly the president, CEO, and co-founder of Torres Resources, which sold for $205 million in 2014 Canadian dollars. Today, he's the chair and director of Fury Gold Mines, president and CEO of Sombrero Resources, and chair and director of Tier 1 Silver. Ivan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here, Adam. Nice to meet you informally.
All right, so I'll tell you, we got a lot to cover today, and I'm excited to get into this with you today. So, you're an entrepreneur in exploration. You've had multiple successes already. First being Torres Resources, which is now called Galiano Gold, and it's a producing mine company. And then the second, Torres Resources, which you sold to Agnico Eagle in 2014 for just over 200 million Canadian dollars. And now you're keeping busy. You got a lot of other exploration companies that you founded and you have going. Talk to us about the strategy behind creating 4 separate companies.
Sure. Well, it's a lot of work, but in our space, in the mining exploration sector, which is the commodity sector itself, we go through bear markets and bull markets. And the last success you mentioned, Caden, which we sold for just over 200 million to Agnico Eagle in 2014. It happened at the end of the bear market, and we took that success, which obviously made a lot of our shareholders a lot of money, including ourselves, and we rolled it into a company called Torres Resources to go find some of the world's largest gold, copper, or silver mines. And we basically went shopping around the globe, and we ended up in Canada and down in Peru and Chile, looking for the world's largest mines during the bear market when many people were doing this or capital was very hard to come by. So being somewhat contrarian, we were positioning ourselves for what's going to happen next. And we think we're going to enter one of the world's most dominant bull markets and commodities that we've ever seen. Why 4 companies? Well, Torres Resources was the company that followed Torres Resources. This company was the one where we raised over $100 million from 2015 to 2020. And we spent it with some of the world's smartest geoscientists who all came predominantly from Newmont to go find these big mines. And basically, if I use the real estate analogy, we bought a lot of waterfront in California, by LA or down by Newport or Laguna Beach prior to it being developed or being an attractive beach, or so we think it will. So we went out and bought real estate. We got all these projects to the stage of where they could be drilled and major discoveries could happen, and that's what we're trying to achieve here. The first company that you've referenced, Torres Resources, was our first big win. We started the company in 2005, and 4 years later, the stock went from 50 cents to $9 per share on a big gold discovery in Africa. We have increased that target goal of a magnitude of 5 million ounces, or what we found at the time. We're looking for something much bigger with a much bigger team. And the fourth company, Torres Resources, this company was formed back in 2011, so a decade ago. And my partner Sean and I, we don't stop on our companies until they become a success for shareholders. So far, we are 2 for 2 on things that we've done. We've split a company into 3 because we had silver assets, gold assets, and copper assets in one company. It's very hard unless you're producing, which we're not. That's not our model, to get paid for all 3 in one company. But each asset that we have is big enough to stand on its own. And then Torque is something that we started that we are finally getting to the point of acquiring some major assets for as we enter this bull market. But it was forward thinking. It was, putting your money or our money where our mouths are and getting some of the smartest geologists we could find on the planet to be really aggressive before the commodity cycle turns up, which we think is somewhat imminent.
So Sombrero Resources is the company that you chose to be the CEO of. What is it about the Sombrero Copper Project in Peru that really hooked you?
So, great question. And, I chose it as you would choose your favorite child. I have two children, and I can't choose but they're all my children, right? Or that's the way.
Good way to go back to pedal on that one, Ivan.
Well, a lot of people have resonated with Sombrero, and it did sustain a $200-300 million market cap in Oren at the time, because it's really exciting. Each company has an amazing asset like this, but Sombrero was new. It's down in southern Peru. It's an analog to a $100 billion plus ore body called Las Bambas, which is the 10th largest copper producing mine in the world. And it's something where people have missed it. Some people have scratched the surface looking for iron. They found a bit of copper gold, and everybody vacated this area because they thought this part of Peru had the wrong age of rock. So it was the wrong place to be geologically, to keep it real simple. We had some foresight. We have these brilliant geoscientists, Dave Smith and Michael Hendrickson, who said, look, guys, we think this could actually be like the big mine next door that I referenced, Las Bambas. And to make a longer story short, after a year and a half of scraping the surface, taking a lot of samples and doing the geoscientific work, it looks like it could be just as big or bigger than that mine next door. And it looks like it could be really rich as well. This company is not public yet, though. It's the third company to come public from when we spun out Oren into 3 companies last October. And what we're waiting for is access from the local communities. We've done a huge amount of social work, and we have a huge sustainable, presence there, a lot of social programs, a lot of big contributions. We're building a relationship with people that will be affected by this mine if we find it for many decades or centuries to come because of how impactful it will be. And obviously, we have to be very respectful and careful of how we integrate, but we're at the mature stages of where we believe we'll get access here, which will lead to us drilling it, and I think Sombrero will start trading in the fall. So why Sombrero over Fee Gold Mines, Tier 1 Silver, or Torres Resources? It would have been the most disruptive if I had gone to any of the other companies because of the 2 years of working, running Sombrero, working with the communities, setting that up with, the audience and everyone else. It would have been, very disruptive. So it was more of a disruptive challenge. I was the executive chairman, co-founder of Oren Resources prior to splitting and creating Sombrero, Tier 1, and Fury. And so, my biggest involvement happened to be on that project. But, I'll say this, Adam, that's an incredible, huge copper gold opportunity in southern Peru. Copper is a metal we're going to need a lot more of, and we're running out of globally right now as we grow and modernize and electrify the planet with electric cars. It's a very compelling case. It has low risk and a huge probability factor because copper is very easy to explore. If you can sample it for hundreds of meters on the surface or kilometers or miles on the surface, it generally is right there or homogeneously. You drill it, it's underneath where you walk on it, right? Gold can be tricky. We have an incredible gold portfolio in Canada. We chose Canada because it's the safest, easiest place to go, and all of the gold projects in Fury Gold Mines, they're really rich. They have a really high grade, over 7 grams. If that number means anything to you, but in our world, generally gold mines are around 1 gram or so, these 7 gram, plus gold mines. But Canada is an area, this vast area that is largely explored and underexplored at the same time. And I'm a gold bug first. That's how I entered this business. So that is my gold bug story and the profile of what it could be. It has a project called Committee Bay, which we're going to start drilling actually this week here in the middle of July. And it has a chance to deliver one of the world's bigger gold discoveries that it's seen in the last few decades. So another compelling story that would rival the potential outcome of Sombrero. Thirdly, Tier 1 Silver, this was a cool story because it was the first project, Caribaya, in Tier 1 Silver that we acquired about 5 years ago in Peru when we first got to Peru. 5 presidents later, and it proves an amazing place They're just getting through their election. It's got the best endowment globally and probably the most opportunity to find some of these big discoveries. But it came by a concept from our geologists that were from Newmont, the largest gold company in the world. They were on a trend they sampled, and it was right next to some of the world's largest mines that would rank number 3, 4, and 5 in the world. And they started finding, kilograms of silver and up to a kilogram of gold on surface. And when you go to a mining trend where there's a series of mines like pearls on a string in a row, and you start to see, what we call bonanza grade, but ridiculously high grade, very rich, like a jewelry box on surface over a vast area on a major mining trend, that's where it gets really exciting. And now we just started drilling that a few weeks ago. So, another world-class opportunity. And lastly, I'll talk about real briefly is Torque. Torque is a copper-gold focused company. It was hunting for a decade for the right asset to go find a Sombrero, to go find a Committee Bay, to go find something, a Curibaya in Tier 1. And it's focused down in Chile. And again, in Chile, some of the largest mines in the world exist, and the people we're working with down in Chile have found and sold, assets for $3-4 billion, major mines down there. So they've got the early start towards acquiring some of the world's best copper gold assets in Chile, and by the fall, they should start drilling those assets, and that will point us to the game plan. We don't like producing. That's not what we wake up for in the morning. We like the treasure hunt and the lottery ticket type return you can get on finding a major mine. And size matters to us, and price performance matters to us. So each of these opportunities that I've explained, what we shoot for in the share price, people say I shouldn't do this, but not because I'm not allowed, but we're looking for $30, $50 a share price in return from the 60 cents to $1.50 share price that we're trading at. That's the kind of swings we're taking, quantified by how big the opportunities in each company, as well as the anticipated bull market in commodities. And obviously there's risk with that, but we mitigate the risk because each company has usually 3 or 4 opportunities. So if one doesn't work out, one of the other ones might.
No, that's great. It's a great overview, and you weren't joking when you said you are busy. But I like the approach of diversifying these different companies. Number one, but also, as you mentioned, each company has multiple assets that it's presumably looking to looking to cash in on, really, on some of these either undervalued or assets that were overlooked, as you mentioned, with a couple of the mines, and your geologists doing what they do to uncover real value there and real potential value, and then combine that with your process of really forming those deep relationships in the areas where, as you mentioned, the local the people that live there are going to be affected by the mines and by the production, other things like that. I mean, really, it sounds to me like you're covering all bases here.
Absolutely, and I've been doing this for 22 years. I do this now by choice, and it's because of the first 2 successes. It gave us a lot of opportunity, but the gratification of making a major discovery, I mean, I'm a very large shareholder in the companies. I've put in a lot of my own capital, and so have my partners, into these companies, but the biggest gratification of finding a major mine is, one is making the money and the return. The other one is impacting lives in a positive manner. Like we did our first company, 8,000 people were still affected by the gold mine we found. Their standard of living improved considerably. A lot of people will make it to get formal educations, better health care, and several different dietary things that we can improve with agricultural programs. Being part of that is super gratifying, and it's fun. I'll be honest with you, it's my passion. Why am I so busy right now? Because I love what we do, and even more importantly, I love the team around me, the people, my partners. Every person in our company has this incredible strong work ethic and desire to perform at way above their pay grade or their, expected, workday. And from that perspective, we have an incredibly strong culture, which allows us to go after these huge discoveries. And look, I've done this for 20 plus years. I do invest into companies from time to time. And some of the people that have worked at our pace and our caliber, they're in their 60s, 70s. There's a big generation gap. There's very few people that have the same caliber of an outfit that we have, or the tenacious perseverance to go after the real big one. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not trying to make money. I'm trying to make history with these discoveries. And the money part came early. We're very shareholder-minded, so shareholders have done very well with us in the past. And so now we're trying to go make that mark where we can find a mine, maybe it's Sombrero, maybe it's Curibaya, but something that you will hear about, you will talk about. There might even be a movie about it one day. If we really make that discovery, we want to leave our mark. And, copper is a very critical metal going forward for a cleaner planet. We're very proud of that. So is silver, used heavily into solar panels and everything else that goes to a lot of various electronics. But from that perspective, being part of the solution of a problem that's growing considerably where the planet is running out of metal in places that it's easy to mine it or easy to find it. And so being in this business for over 20 years, you look at it and you say, well, here's an opportunity. Every commodity is out there is likely going to go up because we're running out of supply. And I'll give you one statistic that's pretty cool. I believe you're in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of electric cars. I live part-time in Newport Beach. And, all of you driving electric cars, the whole world drives about 3% is saturated with electric vehicles right now. And if you double that to 6% today, there's no copper left in any mine on the planet. And the anticipation is that in 2030, we're going to be through 7.8% electrification in vehicles on the globe, right? And it's a hard statistic to believe. It's a hard statistic to understand. But if you have a computer, if you do a renovation on your house, if you're going to buy a new condo, the amount of copper that's being consumed, not just by China overseas as they grow their economies, and India is coming online, but just even in local North America, it's substantial. And, we've spent over $100 million in the last 5 years across our group, across our companies, or specifically in Orin, primarily, trying to go find major copper mines. And it's not easy, which tells us that if you find something, that $30, $40, $50 share price could be fully tenable, and you could deliver that kind of return to investors if we're successful.
Fantastic. Well, Ivan, I have to tell you, this has been great having you on the show today. If somebody's interested in learning more about your companies or connecting, what's the best way for them to do that?
Okay, group of companies, furygoldmines.com, real simple, FURYGOLDMINES.com, tier1silver.com, TIERONESILVER.com, and SombreroResources.com. So any of my companies are very easy to find that I've spoken about today. And I look forward to any questions anyone has. Just reach out to any of the companies, and we'd be happy to tell you how exciting and where we are in that huge adventure to go find the world's next major mines.
Awesome. Love it. Well, Ivan, again, thank you for coming on the show today. It's been a pleasure having you on and learning more about your companies. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you learned a lot. If you did, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. We definitely want you to be a return listener and visitor. Don't want you to miss out on anything. And Ivan, thanks again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. Real pleasure.